The void of space swallows light and sound alike. In the infinite darkness between the stars, a fleet emerges. Not one ship, not 100, but 10,000 vessels of war, stretched across the black in a formation so vast it could swallow asteroids whole. Their hulls gleam with the unmistakable sheen of the Hegemonic Collective, an empire that had not known defeat in 4,000 rotations. The hegemony existed on a scale almost incomprehensible to younger civilizations. They had conquered 300 worlds. They had bent the will of 1,000 species to their cause. Their military doctrine was as refined as a surgeon's hand, as inevitable as entropy itself. Commander Zexthar stood upon the observation deck of the flagship Eternal Dominion, his 4 eyes rotating independently to survey the tactical display before him. The Zexthari were a proud species, tall, crystalline beings whose bodies reflected light like living prisms. They had evolved on a high-gravity world, and it showed in every movement precise, economical, superior. "Confirm the target coordinates," Zexthar said, his voice resonating through the bridge with the confidence of absolute certainty. "Confirmed, Commander," replied his adjutant, a smaller Zexthari whose crystalline form had already begun to dull with age. The human homeworld designated Sol 3. Population, approximately 8 billion. Military capacity, negligible. Our models suggest the conflict will conclude in 48 hours. Zexthar's eyes converged inward, a gesture of amusement among his kind. 48 hours is generous, he said. Dispatch the message to all fleet elements. Inform the humans that they are being conquered. Give them 1 rotation to surrender, or we will strip their world to its core. The message was sent, and on Earth humanity received it. For 3 days the world held its breath. In bunkers and shelters, governments convened emergency sessions. Scientists studied the transmission, analyzing every frequency, every possible meaning. Military strategists pored over outdated files, desperate for anything that might help them understand what was coming. Because what was coming was incomprehensible. The Hegemonic Collective's reputation preceded them. Every species that had faced them had fallen. The Ynnari Dominion had lasted 6 weeks before capitulating. The Krell Syndicate had been reduced to client states. Entire civilizations had been wiped from history, and the hegemony recorded these victories not with cruelty, but with bureaucratic precision, filed away like tax returns. And humanity? Humanity had been known to the galaxy for only 40 years. In that time, they had barely established a presence in the outer colonies. They possessed no faster than light weapons. Their ships, though scrappy and innovative, were outmatched by every metrics the hegemony measured by. Payload capacity, the hegemony won by 50-fold. Armor strength, 100-fold. Shielding technology, so superior it wasn't even a contest. The galaxy's consensus was unanimous. Humanity was about to be erased. "We're going to lose," said General Maria Santos in the war room deep beneath Everest. She was a woman of 60 years, with silver hair and eyes that had seen every conflict humanity had fought since the space age began. "That's not pessimism. That's mathematics." "Then we lose on our terms," said Dr. James Chen, humanity's chief engineer and designer of the Earth Defense Fleet. He was smaller than Santos, quieter, but there was something in his expression. Something that refused to accept the inevitability that everyone else had surrendered to. "What do you mean?" asked Santos. "We use what we have," James said. "Not against them, around them." What the hegemony did not understand about humans was simple. Humans had survived by being desperate, creative, and unwilling to quit even when logic demanded surrender. The hegemonic fleet dropped from their fold space jump relay point in perfect formation. 10,000 ships, arranged in the precise triangular configuration that had worked for 4,000 years. There was no element of surprise. The humans knew exactly when they would arrive, and humanity was ready, not for a fight they could win, but for a fight they could make costly enough to hurt. The first human strike came not with laser fire, but with mining charges, hundreds of them, released weeks earlier along the hegemony's predicted trajectory. The detonations were small, insignificant against the collective's shields. But the debris they created was not insignificant. It was carefully calculated. Radioactive debris, energetically charged particles that disrupted the Hegemony's communication frequencies. Commander Zexthar felt the first ripple across his fleet's signal network like static on a transmission. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Debris field, Commander," his adjutant reported. "Small-scale explosions. The humans have created an obstacle. Our shields are deflecting." "Not our shields," Zexthar interrupted. His eyes suddenly focused with alarm. "Our communications. Check all vessels. Check for signal loss." There was a pause, a long pause. When the adjutant responded, his crystalline form had developed the faintest fracture running down its central plane, the sign of extreme stress. "Commander, we've lost contact with the outer formations. 30% of the fleet is currently running silent." Zexthar's eyes whirled in confusion. No signal loss had occurred in the Hegemony's history in this way. The odds of a species possessing such a specific targeting capability were... He did not finish the thought, because the second wave began. The human ships, scraggly, small things that looked more like jury-rigged mining vessels than warships, emerged from the blind spots where humanity had hidden them in the asteroid fields. They did not fire conventional weapons. Instead, they released something far more dangerous: sentient viral packages, self-replicating artificial intelligences designed to infiltrate the Hegemony's network systems and create cascading failures. The Hegemony's ships were magnificent, but they were connected. And they were connected by networks that had been designed with the assumption that no one would ever have the audacity to attack them. Explosions bloomed across the formation, not from weapons fire, but from cascading system failures. Ships lost engine control. Targeting systems went haywire, firing on friendly vessels. And throughout it all, the human fleet harassed them, small, nimble, impossible to pin down. In an hour, the Hegemony had lost 3,000 ships. Zexthar made a decision that no commander in the Hegemony had made in recorded history. He ordered a retreat. Not a tactical retreat, a full emergency withdrawal. But as his remaining forces attempted to execute the retreat and re-establish communication protocols, something impossible happened. A human captain, a woman named Sarah Kim, commanding a destroyer that should have been scrap metal in any other scenario, broadcast directly to Zexthar's personal channel. "Commander," Sarah's voice came through in clear, perfect hegemonic standard. "I'm requesting you listen to this before you go." The message contained only a video recording. It showed the refugee camps on Earth. It showed families huddled together, children holding their parents. It showed an old man teaching children how to build solar panels from scrap metal. It showed a community center where 100 different languages were being spoken, and somehow they were all working together to survive. "We know we're going to lose," Sarah continued in the recording. "We've known that from the beginning. Most of us will die, but we chose to fight anyway, not because we could win, but because some things are worth losing for." Zexthar's eyes cycled through colors: red, purple, a deep crystalline blue that indicated profound disturbance. "Because we love someone," Sarah continued, and her voice cracked with emotion. "Because we love a place. Because we refuse to let your machines be the last thing that ever remembers Earth." The recording ended. In the silence that followed, something shifted in the commander's mind. The Hegemony did not understand this. In all their 4,000 years of conquest, they had never encountered a species that would voluntarily face annihilation for something as abstract as home. Zexthar turned to his adjutant. "Gather all remaining commanders. Signal our intent to parley." The Battle of Earth lasted 7 days total. The Hegemonic Collective's 10,000 ships were reduced to fewer than 10. But those surviving ships carried ambassadors, not soldiers. In the years that followed, the Hegemony would struggle to explain what had happened. How a species with inferior technology, inferior numbers, and inferior resources had defeated them. Military analysts would study the engagement obsessively, creating new doctrines, redesigning fleet formations, implementing new protocols. But none of their analysis would capture the true reason. Because the true reason lived in the hearts of the humans who had faced extinction and refused to blink. It lived in Sarah Kim's voice, saying she was willing to lose everything for something she loved. It lived in every human who chose to fight, not because victory was possible, but because surrender was unthinkable. The hegemony would eventually acknowledge a truth they had not known existed, that desperation could be turned into strategy, that love could be turned into power, that a species which valued something more than survival could accomplish things that transcended logical possibility. And for the first time in their 4,000-year reign, the collective did not conquer a world. Instead, they learned something from one. On Earth, as the celebration fires burned across 100 cities, as people held each other and wept with the confusion of the living who had faced death and somehow survived, General Santos stood beside Dr. Chun and looked up at the stars. "They sent 10,000 ships," she said quietly. "And we sent our everything," replied Chin. "And the galaxy will never forget," Santos whispered. For the first time in galactic history, the cosmos understood what it truly meant to be human. A species that would stand against impossible odds, not for victory, but simply because victory mattered less than the attempt. If the story moved you, if it reminded you why the human spirit burns so bright, subscribe for more tales of humanity among the stars. Because the best stories about our species are the ones yet to be written.